possible.
All right,
I really
can we turn off the other mic? Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back now. It's 7:39. Congresswoman Janice Hahn is with us, and I'm not going to go through your whole background, except the Hahn family has always been in politics here in Southern California. You're the first one to go to Congress. You're in Congress. You're supportive of President Obama, right? Passionate supporter of President Obama. Now this thing happens in Syria. He talks about military action. You get caught in a situation where you don't agree with him, do you?
I don't. And this was difficult because I do support this president. I'm in the president's party. But I parted ways with him on this issue. I never felt the right course of action for the United States at this time was a military strike, no matter how limited in scope or duration.
Can we put it in simple words? He's your president, you support him, but you think he's wrong on this issue.
I do. I don't judge his motives, right? This man feels very passionately about those kids that were gassed, the use of chemical weapons. He's very passionate about that. But I just think there was another option that we should be pursuing, and now hopefully that is on the table.
Is there anything, I mean, it's strange to everybody, is it uncomfortable for you that the peacemaker at this point seems to be Putin?
It is a little weird, especially since President Obama had the Nobel Peace Prize before he was, even inaugurated as president. So he was a president who campaigned on ending the war. So to have Putin be the one right now that is putting on the table this diplomatic option is strange, but I think we ought to pursue it.
Your history is one of basically an anti-war position. I imagine you think there's time for war, but not often. You're an anti-war person. You're a peace person. You wore the peace signs. You did all those things. You had a president who kind of ran on an anti-war platform. Do you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you think that he's not only contradictory but a hypocrite on this issue?
Well, I don't think he's a hypocrite. He believes that an international norm was violated with the use of chemical weapons in Syria. My problem was, if it's an international norm that was violated, I felt it needed an international response, and many of my constituents don't think the United States should be the enforcer of an international norm. Our president does.
Do you feel that the president was looking at the rule of unintended consequences, and then those other things that happen in the Middle East, and no action doesn't occur without 15 other reactions? Do you think he was missing that?
Well, when we were briefed in all of our classified briefings, the case from the administration was really the consequence of inaction. So for them, it was either bomb Syria or turn a blind eye. And they felt like turning a blind eye was, the wrong position for us. I always felt like there was a third option between bombing and turning a blind eye. And it was, how can we hold this guy accountable in another way besides bombing innocent people in Syria?
How strange do you find yourself in the same political position as a lot of Tea Party members with whom you never agree and they never agree with you?
Well, I went back to Congress to try to find common ground with the other side, and it's very strange that this would be the common ground that we found ourselves in, and the majority of members of Congress just were not in favor of going to war.
So the vote is postponed, right? But let's say it happens next week, and the president calls upon you. He calls upon party discipline in the Democratic Party. Please support me on this. What are you going to do?
At this time, and I don't know if anything will change for me when that vote comes up, but I have not been convinced that the right course of action for the United States is to go it alone and take a military strike against Syria. I'm hopeful that this other pathway of helping to secure the chemical weapons, which, by the way, was not part of our military strike. Our military strike was to punish Assad, was to send a message. It was never to get control of these chemical weapons. I'm hoping this pathway of actually securing these chemical weapons is really a better outcome.
And what about the fear that the so-called good guys who are opposed to him are really the bad guys?
Well, that's why it's so complicated, this whole situation. I mean, the opposition to the Syrian government were not our friends either. So which side were we actually trying to help, and would we have tipped the balance of that civil war in a direction that we weren't prepared for? It was very complicated, which is why I just didn't see us having a role to play in this civil war.
Congresswoman, let me bring it back here to California. The story broke last night. The legislature passed the bill to allow illegal immigrants, undocumented workers, to have driver's licenses. This would have been an issue you would have been dealing with in one way or another. What do you think?
Well, when I was on the City Council of Los Angeles, I was always on the side. In fact, we passed a couple of resolutions on the City Council in favor of undocumented immigrants having driver's license. I think it's very difficult in Los Angeles to get around, to have work, to take care of your family, to go to church without a car. And I would much rather people go through the same things that I've gone through, which is to study the rules, take the driving test, have your eyes checked, and be on the road with insurance. So I'm in favor of people having a license to drive.
Does that make the undocumented workers documented in some way? They say this can only be used for driver's license, but it's an official card. You can show it, right?
Right. Well, you know, and again, in Los Angeles, it's hard to get around without a driver's license, and it's hard to get around without some kind of an official identification. I'm for that. More importantly, though, I think Congress should really get down to the business of fixing our immigration system and coming up with a comprehensive immigration reform which secures the border.
Everybody in Congress says they want to do that, but nobody comes up with a specific answer for all of that.
Right. I'm still hopeful on that one as well. We're working on, there's a bipartisan agreement in the House to come forward with a bill that I think answers a lot of this.
Okay. A complicated subject, if you can simplify it before we run out of time here. We are looking at a looming government shutdown. This has to do with the budget. It has to do with Obamacare. It has to do with setting all kinds of limits on government spending. In the real world, because most of us don't understand any of this, and I don't even think people in Congress understand it sometimes, what's really going to happen here?
That's a very good question. I mean, we are weeks away from October 1st when we could possibly have a government shutdown, which is not going to be good for anyone. There are those in the House, the Republicans, who would like to tie to this resolution, which we're going to pass to keep the government open, an amendment that says we will defund Obamacare, which is not going to make it through the Senate or the President.
They're not going to get the votes for that, but they want that out there. And the threat of a government shutdown, which doesn't really shut the government down. It shuts down certain aspects of the government. And then you have the debt limit, the ceiling limit, which is another issue. All right. We have to go now. Thank you for coming in. You're available. You'll come back again.
I'd love to come back on your show, Steve.
Oh, wow. Okay. Janice Hahn, thank you. Good to see you. Thank you very, very much. When we come back, we got a great Firehouse Friday and USC playing Boston College tomorrow. Could this possibly be a do-or-die game for Lane Kiffin? You think Lane Kiffin should go?